Chapter 17. Martin squinted against the harsh Australian sun, feeling sweat gather at the back of his neck as he scanned the field, his eyes following the drones as they zipped back and forth. There were too many eyes on this for his taste. As someone who had gone many years avoiding all eyes, he fought off a panic attack. The Department of Agriculture executives stood in a tight huddle behind him, watching each drone movement with a hawkish intensity. To them, this was an investment, a trial of funding, resources, and promises. To Martin, this was his chance, the closest he'd been to real success in years. Garrett's response was a quick, eager, smooth as butter. The kid sounded confident, but Martin recognized that jittery edge, the nervousness just barely hidden under a layer of bravado. This trial felt different, heavier. With every line of code, every pixel on the live feed, Martin sensed the pressure building. He could feel it in the furrowed brows and crossed arms of the observers behind him, ready to pounce at the slightest misstep. The drones were sweeping the fields in clean, even lines, and for a moment, Martin allowed himself to feel pride. With the soft hum of the drones mixed with the rustling of dry leaves, he felt the unusual blend of tech and nature settle over him in a rare, calming way. Maybe, just maybe, they were going to pull this off. One of the drones wobbled, dipping suddenly and swerving off its path. Martin's stomach twisted as Garrett, eyes wide, waited to see what would happen. A repeat visitor. The drone approached the first time, blaring the air horn. Just as expected. When the kangaroo didn't move, the drone swooped around and approached a second time, getting even closer. The drone continued to pursue the stubborn animal. The drone backed up and then gained speed, horn blaring, headed straight for a large gray figure grazing at the field's edge. "Ah, no," Garrett muttered, his fingers darting over the screen. The drone picked up speed, too fast now, and then thud. The machine smacked into the kangaroo's side, bouncing off and skidding to a halt in a dusty, graceless heap. The kangaroo shook its head, seemingly unhurt, and bounced off, but Martin could already feel the weight of eyes on his back, every head in the huddle turning to him with the unspoken question, what went wrong? Martin forced himself to stay calm, clearing his throat, but his mouth was dry. He looked over at Garrett, trying to keep his expression steady, but Garrett looked as rattled as he felt. Martin's jaw tightened and he threw Garrett a look of frustration mixed with resignation. "So much for smooth," he muttered, stepping back as the officials closed in, their murmurs growing louder, faces tight with displeasure. One of the department heads, a tall man with a hard gaze, cut through the murmurs. "We'll need to address this," he said, looking directly at Martin and Garrett. His tone was calm but laced with an unmistakable firmness. "This can't happen again. Understand?" Garrett shifted uncomfortably, irritation flickering in his eyes. "It was an anomaly," he said, trying to sound steady. "The drones are still in testing. This is just one incident." The official didn't blink. One incident could mean bad headlines. Martin felt his stomach drop. This was supposed to be his moment, his project to own, and now it was at risk over one mistake. He forced himself to sound calm as he addressed the group. "We'll look into it straight away," he said, willing confidence in his voice. "We'll go through the logs, figure out what caused the error, and make sure it doesn't happen again." The official nodded, but his gaze was hard as steel. "See that you do," he said, and his eyes flicked to Garrett, "or we'll be forced to shut this project down." As the officials turned away, heading back to their vehicles, Garrett let out a low, frustrated laugh. "It's a test. Of course things will go wrong," he muttered, his voice filled with nerves. Martin shot him a sharp look. The kid didn't understand how things worked here, not really. "We need to suss out what went wrong and fix it," he said, his voice firm. Garrett's irritation turned into something darker. Anxiety. "Martin, we just had a drone ram into a kangaroo. I didn't program it to do that. It was supposed to keep a safe distance, but it veered right into it." The more Garrett spoke, the more his nerves unraveled, and Martin could see it happening. The kid was realizing he might be in over his head. Martin sighed, rubbing his temples. "Look, I don't like it either. It shouldn't have happened, but we can't let one glitch ruin this. Garrett's face was clouded with doubt. But how am I supposed to fix this if I don't even know what went wrong? Martin felt a pang of empathy but didn't have time for Garrett's doubts. Not now. Not when his career was finally getting somewhere. Mate, listen, he said, keeping his voice steady. This isn't just about the tech. There's a bigger picture here. Funding. If we lose their backing, this whole project goes down the drain. Garrett sighed, the fight draining from his face. So what's the plan? We pretend it didn't happen and hope it doesn't happen again? Nah, Martin said firmly. We get into the code, figure out what's mucked up, and sort it. But we're not broadcasting every little stumble. We keep this under wraps till it's spot on. He watched Garrett's face soften in reluctant understanding. The kid didn't have to like it. He just had to get it. Martin clapped a hand on his shoulder, a surprising warmth in his tone. Come on, mate. Let's get back to the drawing board. We'll make it better. We'll make it work. As they headed back to their makeshift command post, Martin felt the weight of what lay ahead. He had just weeks to make this project bulletproof, and with each day, he was more determined to hold on to this chance. This was his shot to step up, to finally prove he wasn't just another mid-level manager collecting a paycheck.